questions to folks? Just rearrange my desktop with a couple of things. There we go.
Are those different than the ones that you gave us yesterday, other than the triangle one?
Oh, sorry. No, those are the exact same. We don't need those. I don't know why I brought this. I don't know why I handed it over. Okay, so we're taking a look at a couple things today. We're going to look at kinship, and we are going to look at possessive pronouns. So we'll start with the possessive pronouns first. And so we've looked at the singular forms, and so now all we're doing is we're just rotating our triangles a little bit and saying, oh yeah, well we can go plural as well. So we did this using an animal in the room, which I didn't bring any animals. Because we can all just sort of work together. So you guys are a group, you guys are a group, and we're a group. Okay, we're A, B, and C, whatever type of group we are. And then we also have those who are online. Those of you all online are part of a group as well. So this is how we start shifting from talking about one person or thing doing things to multiple. And it does matter in Tlingit. It matters grammatically in quite a few different ways. So some of those ways are when we're talking about verbs. There are certain verbs where the verb changes when you go to plural. An example would be if you see a bird, there was a bird there and it flew away. You could say, the bird, it flew off, it took off from it. Now, if there was multiple birds, that wouldn't work. You'd say, so you would have to pluralize the pronoun, and you would pluralize the verb. There's not a whole bunch of them that do that, but there are some. Sitting, standing. For people flying, it's all with the pin, because we don't flap our wings. We get into one thing together and fly. Maybe if we all had individual jetpacks, maybe that would be reached. So in the future, we'll have to adjust it, perhaps. Walking, so one single person walking as opposed to a group of people walking. Standing, sitting, sleeping, talking, thinking. And there's probably a few others. But those are the sort of main ones that sort of keep them up. Well, we'll just start with the pronouns. So what we've done, so there's one person involved, so we went chat wa hu. Everybody did that. Chat wa hu. Chat wa hu. Chat wa hu. So these are independent pronouns. They're not attached to anything grammatically. They just sort of sit there. Here I am. It's me. You know, the types of things where you need to emphasize who you're talking about. To move these to the plural, Wuhan, where's the Wuhan? Wuhan. Yuhan.
Yuhan.
Hus.
Hus.
Wuhan.
Wuhan.
Yuhan.
Yuhan.
Hus.
Hus. Hus.
Wuhan. Yuhan. Hus.
Wuhan. Yuhan. Hus.
Wuhan, Yuhan, Hus.
Wuhan. Yuhan. Hus.
So now we should be able to string 6 of these together. Chat wa hu. Wuhan, Yuhan, Hus.
Chat wa hu. Wuhan. Yuhan. Hus.
Chat wa hu. Wuhan, Yuhan, Hus.
Chat wa hu. Hus.
Okay. What I would like to do, send it around so we all can do this on our own. So there's 6 of them that we're doing right now. And we'll just do that. So if it helps, you can use the 1 finger, 2 finger, 1 finger for first person, 2 fingers for second, 3 for third. Then you can do 2 hands for plural. It helps you remember. Sometimes it's good to have body language to help sort of put these things into your memory. Because we use them when we get into verb conjugation. And I like to tease people sometimes. So like, there's a group of people all hanging out, and one person leaves, and they turn around and they'll say, "Ich sechan," and I'll say, "Which one? Me?" Because you could pluralize that to say, "I love y'all," instead I just love you. Right? So, and this is important to start talking about groups of people as opposed to single people, and then who's on part of what you're communicating. It's really important. Okay, so I'll go first. We'll set it around. We'll jump onto the phone. We'll go online. Folks online, so it's Chet wa'eh hu. Uhan, yuhan, hus.
Hut.
Wa'eh, hu, uhan, yuhan, hus.
Chet wa'eh hu. Uhan, yuhan, hus.
Hut. Wa'eh. Hu. Uhan. Yuhan. Hus.
Chet wa'eh hu. Uhan, yuhan,
Hut. Wa'eh. Hu. Uhan. Yuhan. Hus.
Okay. And Hanpei, are you on the phone?
Wa'eh hu. Uhan, yuhan, hus.
Okay. Anybody else on the phone? Okay. So we'll go left to right. Ich tuch plow.
Chet wa'eh hu. Uhan, yuhan, hus.
Okay. And then Kokja in the boardroom. Anybody in
Who did he say?
there? Okay, it's your turn.
Oh, okay. Hut, wa'eh, hu. No, uhan, yuhan, hus.
Hey, hey. Gage. Jasmine.
Chet wa'eh hu. Yuhan,
Uhan.
uhan, hus.
Uhan, Yuhan.
Uhan, yuhan, hus.
Okay. And Uye.
Chet wa'eh hu. Uhan, yuhan, hus.
Okay. Okay. Did you talk about French Uye? Okay. So we're going to use a body part for when we get into this part because we don't have to put a possessive suffix onto anything. Right? Body parts are always attached. The other convenient thing about body parts is you don't really pluralize them, right? So if I was speaking English, I'd say my hand, our hands. But in Tlingit, I'd say my hand, our hand. That's just how it goes. It's pretty fun.
I had a question. So, Shaw, is that? There's a lot. I was looking at the place names, and a lot of them are hand, something hand.
So if it has j in it, jin, then it has to do with hand. Shah is a mountain. Shah is a head. So you'll see shah in a lot of things as well. The other thing with body parts is you'll see them pop up at the front of verbs. They can get embedded into verbs. Like you could say, yay, nay, it happened. Right? And it could be anything for something to happen. But if you say ye jiwune, he or she worked on it. So now you get the hands part in there. So then when you look at the verb, sometimes it really relates to something, the hands are involved. Other times it's just more sort of metaphorical. But then you get the head of something, and all these things can be embedded into verbs. And so when you look at place names, you see body parts in a lot, because body parts are on the land. English is the same thing. Sometimes you say the nose of it or something like that. Quite a bit. And then when we get to body parts, which we'll get to, we'll remember that body parts also have body parts. Okay. So if we go one slot over to the right on this handout in our triangle, and what I'll do, I'll try and balance our time for our online Huani, and for our phone, I'm trying to get handouts out a little bit before class. But also, I'll try to make sure that these handouts are going up on tlingit.info as well, so that sometimes you can see what we're doing in the room, and sometimes you'll see the handout on the screen. So shifting to the right, we would say with the singular, and we're going to put a noun on there because you wouldn't just say ach, you wouldn't just say my. That's an incomplete sort of thing. So we'll tie it to body parts. Everybody say, and just kind of grab your hand or point at it. Ach, jin. Ach, jin. Ach, jin. Ach, jin.
Jin.
Ach, jin. Ach, jin. Point at somebody's hand and talk to them about it. Ich jin. 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 Still talking to the same person, or you're talking about somebody else? Jin. Jin.
Jin.
Jin. Jin. Jin.
Jin. Jin.
Jin.
Jin.
Jin.
Jin.
Ach jin. Ich jin. Du 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 jin.
Okay. So now as we shift that to the plural, and we're going to see the first person plural, we're going to see it all over the place. It also has some special qualities. There's certain words like shukaf. It means in front of something, right? Like say this is a boat going along on the water, and there's a porpoise cresting in front of the boat, like they sometimes do. Let's just play around with the boat. You could say yakshuka we cheech. There's a porpoise in front of the boat. So that word shuka just means to be in front of something. It has really an interesting use in Tlingit as well. Because when you say ha shuka, it literally means the things it's something in front of us. But when it's put together that way, it means everything that ever was, everything that is right now, and everything that will ever be, especially people. So sometimes it'll be translated as ancestors or future generations, but it's a tough one to translate. There's another one, shagun. Shagun means, it could mean the story behind how it was made. It could mean the parts that make it up. Like if you took a car apart, you could call that it's shagun. And it could also mean like sort of its origin story. Like I could say, in question me, shagun. I'm going to tell you how this cup was made. I'm going to tell you the story. And so that would become relevant for like telling you about a shirt, telling you about something, some kind of story, something that's cool. But the same thing, once we say ha shagun, that means our ancestors. They're the things that made us. There are the components of us. So there's a few of them where it's going to change. Ha ani becomes a pretty important concept in Tlingit, our land. So now we're talking collectively for whatever reason. I don't know. But so in Imagine yourselves. This is one group. That's a group. That's a group. You guys are a group now. I'm talking about group stuff. There's a group online and also on the phone. So when you grab your hand now, and you're talking about all of our hands. Ha Jin,
Ha Jin,
Ha Jin,
Ha Jin,
Ha Jin.
Ha Jin,
When that's some group you're talking to, Yi Jin,
Yi Jin,
Yi Jin,
Yi Jin,
Yi Jin.
Yi Jin,
Now you're still talking to that same group, but you're talking about this whole other group. Hastu Jin,
Hastu Jin,
Hastu Jin,
Hastu Jin,
Hastu Jin,
Hastu Jin,
Hastu Jin.
Hastu Jin.
So it's kind of fun because body parts, you're talking about multiple hands. It's not our one collective hand. And so you're going to see how these things work. Ha ani, yi ani, hastu ani. And these are great things to know how to conjugate and to talk about. You're going to, the big thing is always thinking of how you're going to use this language to communicate. You want to talk to people, you're making some kind of speech, you want to say something important. Sometimes you need to talk about this. Your guys' shirt. So you're talking to some clan. You're a totem pole that they made. Right? We're talking about this other group. So, the hands on our minds. Achjin, Ijin, Dujin.
Jin, Ijin, Dujin.
Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin.
Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Okay, we got 6 in a row. Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Okay. Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Good rhythm. Good job. Okay, so now we'll send it around, and then we'll move on to kinship. We'll come back when we got object and subject stuff a little bit later. Okay. Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Okay.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin. Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
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 Okay. Hanter, each paw.
Ajin, Ijin, Dujin, Hastujin.
Oh. So let's do, we'll do them in sets. Achjin, Ijin, Dujin.
Ajin, Ijin, Dujin.
Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Ajin, Ijin, Hastujin.
Okay. And Yech, Uchpa.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin, Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Okay. Conference room.
Hajin, Yijin, Dujin, Hestujin.
Okay, let's do the first three.
Oh,
Akjin, Ikjin, Du.
Akjin, Ijin, Dujin.
Hajin, Yijin, Hustujin.
Ajin, Yijin, Hestujin.
Okay.
Akjin, Ijin, Dujin, Hajin, Yijin, Hastujin.
Okay. H.
Achjin, Ijin, Dujin, Hajin, Yijin, Hustujin.
Uyej.
Achjin, Itjin, Dujin, Hajin, Yijin, Hasdujin.
Hey. So everybody grab your hand, say Akjin.
Akjin.
Point at your palm. Akjin Tak.
Akjin Tak.
Yijin Tak. Nai touch. Slap your palm together. Or just slap your palm. So it's not really together. Okay, good job. And so we'll keep an eye out for these as well. I think, well, next week we're looking at our sort of plan of attack for this class. Tomorrow, we want to do some phrases. And I don't know if I've been particularly clear about what we're supposed to do. But just go through this book and each pick 6 phrases. So 6 pieces.
They have to be out of that book.
Well, if you can find them somewhere else, that is fine.
We were thinking of playing a game of Go Fish with the Tlingit language cards in Tlingit. Would that be okay?
That would be, so you want to,
No,
what's that?
in a way, we rehearsed it a little bit yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It has a bunch of different phrases in Tlingit.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So about 12 total phrases. So 6, make sure you get 6 apiece.
Okay.
And then everybody else, and you can use whatever, you can just write them down, read them right off the paper. There's no memorization involved. Yeah, is everybody okay with that? It's not an exam or anything, it's just a chance to stand up and utilize some language. Everybody online, you guys okay with what we're going to try and do tomorrow? And everybody has a partner, is that right? Can we take care of all that? Is anybody not sure who your partner is?
I'm not sure who my partner is.
Hey, right. What's that?
I'm not either.
Okay.
And neither am I.
Pankej, how about you?
No, I don't know.
Okay, perfect.
Could we do it with 2 pictures or 2 puppets?
So you guys that are online, you have some options. One is I could pair you guys right now, and then the question becomes, how do you sort of, because it shouldn't take a whole lot of preparation. It's just like, hey, let's just sort of pick these 6 phrases each and sort of put a conversation together. So I guess the question is making sure that you're able to be in contact with one another through email. And I can certainly send an email out to the whole group so that everybody has everyone's email address. It would be a good idea for me to do. And then you guys could just sort of pick some phrases or come up with a quick plan. We could also just sort of, well, it's tough to have a simultaneous conversation with everybody online. to have you guys work in pairs right now. What's your preference, those of you who are online? Your choices are to have basically puppets and to make your own conversation with 12 phrases, or to work in pairs, because there are 4 of you. And then there's 2 of you in the boardroom too. I don't know if you guys want to sort of, we could do pairs that way as well.
Alfie's not up for it, just 'cause, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Jasmine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
Tim?
I'm gonna actually be really busy just for today, but it might be easier for me just to do 12. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, you can do like you can just do a mock conversation. You can have a split personality tomorrow. Alter ego.
It'll be just like real life.
Have a disagreement. Okay, seriously. But yesh tuchta, there's tanteich in Ketchikan. You guys want to try it?
Yes. I don't know. Is Hantesh there?
She's on the telephone. Is that okay with you?
That would be fine.
Okay.
We can just switch email addresses.
Okay. Let me. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I will send an email as soon as this class is over to both of you, just so that you have your email addresses. Okay, perfect. And again, it's just a chance to sort of exercise in the language a little bit and just goof around with a few of these phrases. Okay. No expectations of how it should be. Okay. Everybody okay? So thinking about these possessive pronouns in particular, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to share on the screen the kinship term. So the kinship handout that we had so here we go. Starting out with female kinship terms. So this is where we'll start. Does everybody have this handout? You're online, okay? Okay. So in the center of this, we have khat. What do I say? Khat. 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 And as we keep in mind, kinship terms just totally reveal clan structure. So there's a number of things we're going to keep in mind as we sort of go through these. One is we've done independent pronouns. We've also got the possessive pronouns, except for the someones or some things, which to allow you guys to fill this whole thing out. Yesterday we went through the whole left side, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the top right side, we've done these.
There's a software update kind of blocking half the screen. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Goodness cheese. Oh, so on the left side going down, we've got khat. I guess we'll just say these each ones. Khat. Wa'eh. Wa'eh. Hu. Hu. Wuhan. Wuhan. Yuhan. Yuhan. Has. Has. Ka. Ka. At. At. Okay. So those are those ones we filled out yesterday. Going to the next category over with the possessive pronouns. We've got them on our first handout, so we don't need to. I'll spell the last two for you. Ha. Oops, sorry. Ah. Eh. Eh. Do. Do. Ha.
Ha.
Yi.
Yi.
Hastu.
Hastu.
Ka.
Ka.
Underline K, A, no tone. And then ut.
Ut.
So that is also A-T, no tone. So those two, the only thing that happens is the tone falls off. So starting with ourselves, we're going to go up to our mother's side first. It is a matrilineal plan system, so that's how we're going to look at things. And when we look at how kinship works, it's really interesting in Tlingit, because it comes down to whether people are the same moiety as you or the opposite moiety. That's really the most important thing in Tlingit. From there, it comes down to how closely related are you to these particular clans. So starting up, and we'll just put the kinship term on the sheet for now. And maybe you can draw like a long hyphen right before it, and keep in mind that that long hyphen means there needs to be something there, right? And what could go there is either a possessive pronoun. So any of those possessive pronouns could go there. So the first one is TL, high-toned A. So let's say claw, 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 claw. So with the pronoun claw, 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 do claw, do claw. So they can, you see how they could change. But again, one of the things that has happened with Tlingit, as you get fewer and fewer speakers, words like glah become glaw, and words like claw become claw, right? So it's very subtle shifts, but what happens is it shifts to sounds that are in English, that are, because you go from a sound that's not in English, glah, that's, I don't know if that's really in English, I don't think so, but claw certainly isn't. So then what happens is those sounds get made less and they get changed over to other things. So then you'll hear a lot of people say their name and you'll hear the word claw in it, like an eagle claw or something. And that's usually it means it's claw.
That's all I was going to ask, was if you could remind us the difference between a claw and a claw.
Yeah, so the difference is, and I like to use sign language, so you do like fierce. Claws of fury coming towards somebody's face to claw their eyes out, or a fish in the water, and you say, claw! And then you cradle the little baby, and that's claw. Claw. So you sort of keep those things in mind. And we try not to like make fun of people, but we also try to make sure that the language is being used correctly. So from there, we have siblings of your mother. So this, the chart viewer in the middle, and the theoretical in the middle. So a mother's brother is K, high-toned A, K. Cock, 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 cock. Somebody once told me a story of a guy who was speaking both English and Tlingit at the same time, and it just came out really funny. And it was in Cape, and everybody laughed. And I think he was trying to be funny, but it was probably not the right place. He didn't have that. So then, again, we can change that possessive pronoun to talk about somebody else's. And now, the way that this works, though, so say you're some certain clan. That means all the people of sort of a generation above you who are, men, achkav, that's what you'd say. And especially if you yourself are a man, that relationship becomes very important. And anybody know what?
Because they're the one who teaches you, right?
Yeah, they're the one who teach you. There was traditionally, if you were a male and you reached about 12 or 13, that's who you just go live with. Right? It's one of your maternal uncles. And it doesn't, even though it says on here like mother's brother, we gotta sort of, that's just a good way to think of it, but it's also much broader than that. It's any male of the same clan, because that's considered a sister or brother. With a mother-sister, it does get a little bit different. So the mother-sister is TL, high-toned A, AK, apostrophe W. And that one is clock, 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 clock. But with this is one where it actually does get interesting, because a long time ago, your mother's actual blood sisters, you would often also just call mother. You call them all mother. And so that might not have been the case every time, but I think that was often the case. And then her other clan members of that same generation called them that. The other thing is, if you know somebody is a certain kinship term, or a certain sort of kinship relationship to you, that's what you should use instead of their name, especially if it's a close relationship. The other thing, if you're talking about them, that's fine. And a lot of times when you're talking to them, you would use that kinship term. The other thing, as far as like we were talking about how to say hello and how to start conversations, if there's a close kinship relationship, that's how you start it, right? And so in that case, you wouldn't use the pronoun necessarily. You might say "talk," and then start talking to them. Right? So you just sort of affirming what that relationship is. So now we'll stay with that sort of generation above. We go across to the father's side. In traditional clan structure, your father was your clan opposite. Right? So if you guys were on the Raven side, your mothers were all Ravens, then your father would be an Eagle, and vice versa. So father is high-toned E, E, SH. Ish, 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 ish. So you've got ish and claw. And again, we're sort of just saying them, but just remember it always has a pronoun. The only time it doesn't have a pronoun is if you're speaking directly to that person. And a lot of times we'll drop the pronoun. My terrible joke of last year was the cheesh, ish, and hadla, hadla. The worst and the best. Of course, I had to tell my wife. Okay. So there's a lot of terminology too, though. So to pluralize some of these, and I don't know what the real rule is, but it either gets a hus or a young. Most of them get a hus at the end, just like that word was up, hus for them. So you'd say ish hus, and that would come at the end. And this is used a lot in oratory as well. My fathers, and that doesn't mean you've got a bunch of dads, but that means all those men who were of your father's clan and generation. A lot of them, and so this is where you're negotiating what that personal relationship is. Because somebody might have a clan relationship to you. Like say my father's clan is Kakwantan. But if somebody becomes really close to me, and sometimes like, person's relative might die and somebody steps into that role. Those types of things happen. But also, you might just decide somebody's getting close enough to you in your life that you switch from calling them uncle to just calling them father. And you might call them that in a kinship term. So kinship terms are really interesting because they're one, clan-based, but also two, they're these ongoing negotiated things. Because there could be somebody that you call my father, and he's not your blood father, but he sort of has this strong role in your life. But then maybe something goes horribly wrong, and you stop using that kinship term. Those types of things that happen. But more often, it's the progression of being more closely kindred to each other. So your father's sister A-A-T. Aunt.
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 And then when we get to the male side, there's only a couple things that are really different. So I'll explain this part. So when you talk about aunt, it has a lot of interesting relationships as well, because there's a lot of speeches where they'll say you're now in the laps of your paternal aunties, right? So it has this real sort of they're the ones who are really helping to watch after you. I've also heard people study these speeches where people have said, if you're living your life right, your paternal uncles are speaking through you at times. And there's these really interesting concepts about which ones are helping. There's a teasing thing where you would say, because a lot of times somebody would marry into the same clan as their fathers, right? So like some other family member who's the same clan as their dad. And so there's sometimes jokes about going to be by your aunties, because that's what you call them, it's your father's people. And sometimes these kinship terms get used, and it doesn't matter who's older and younger, but in certain cases it does. But for example, if my name is Konye, and my mother's father's name was Gushtahin, if I meet another Gushtahin, he could be 3 years old, and I would call him grandfather. Right? So those are other things, these concepts of like reincarnation and coming back, and how these names continue to exist. So we go to now our father's brother. S, high-toned A, N-I. Sunny.
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 So this one, a lot of these, there's deep respect rooted in all of these kinship terms, but there are also just some really kind of fun things about them. I don't know why this one is used so much in jokes, but it is. So, for example, there's a Raven story where he loses his nose. I think both the audio and the text. I don't know if the text is right there. I'll put a link up. On Tlingit.info, there's a tab for audio, and you can listen to the story called Raven Loses His Nose. And we'll take a look at it this semester. But he gets done telling this story, and people are laughing because the Raven stories are really funny. They're really fun. And it's really interesting because when you tell Raven stories now, most of the time people don't laugh at them. And they used to be just such funny things. And to not laugh at them is just strange. But sometimes, people, it's part of the thing of sort of cultural shift and language shift, especially. There are these little things that you could do telling these stories that were really funny. And if you know people, if you talk to people who really know these stories, like Sam Johnston and others, when they're done, they're just laughing. They're just laughing so hard at these stories. So somebody tells this Raven story, and he's being really cheeky at different points in the story. And then at the end, he's done, and it gets real quiet. And then you hear this old lady saying, "Hey, Sonny, it's your paternal uncle's nose." And everybody goes crazy laughing, because it's just funny. And so the other thing, it's used to sort of poke fun at people, but also to sometimes say we weren't raised right. Right? If somebody's like really acting a fool, and you sometimes bring up their paternal uncles in addition to their paternal uncles. It's a really interesting kinship term. Everybody okay? Question? Okay. So going up a level, we have grandparents, and it doesn't matter what clan, it doesn't matter what their gender. And this is L, high-toned E, E, L, K, apostrophe, W. I'm having you guys do some fill in the blank stuff, because there might be a time where I just hand this out and say, how much can you fill out? How much can you know? And this one is she, Shlish. 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 Now there are a couple of different ways to specify. You could say Shah Shlish or She Shlish, Ha Shlish. The first two were like saying grandmothers. You're specifying that it's a woman, or you specify that it's a man. More commonly, people would say like Ach Shlish, and then they would use kinship terms to climb their way up to whatever that person is. Ach Shlish, Ach Ta Du Ish. Right, so you'd say my grandparent, my mother's father. So there's ways you could specify. And there's a couple of things you're doing with that. You're specifying which clan, which moiety they are according to you, and also what their gender might be, if that stuff is important. Then you could also use their name and talk about them. And this one, it's also any clan that's related to you sort of through your genealogy that's above your parents. You could call those clans your grandparent clan. Going up another level, this one actually I should, I don't know if I could do that. This one is your mother's father's clan, specifically. So whatever your mother is, then you look at whatever. So going back to her mother, that's all the same clan, but then whatever her father's clan is. So your mother's father's clan. And this one is DAAK AN high tone O OX apostrophe U. We've looked at this in that one lesson, and that's Dakanuku. 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 So that's specific. You can also say the same term beneath it for grandparent with this word after it, which is TLEIN. So you could say Shishkutlain. 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 And that literally means my big grandparent. So plain comes up after a noun to say it's something that's big. But it's interesting because it has these metaphorical uses as well. Like you could say, if you were talking about something, you could say, Akshish, do ish to ish away, ka plain usti. So you could say, my grandparent, my mother's father's father was a big man, ka plain. But that means that he was some sort of leader. It's usually where he was an important person. Okay, so continue to think about these things in terms of...
Lance, can you explain how Dakanuku is specific?
Yes. So Dakanuku, as far as the word itself, the word means like an outer shell. So Daka is what we call a relational base. So it's saying around the outside of something, whatever comes before it. And so you could say Daka, this something around the outside of me. And then Nu is a noun for a shell, like an eggshell in particular, or a clam shell, crab shell, China, like a China doll in some cases. So grammatically, the term means my outer shell. As far as genealogy goes, this is your mother's father's clan. So, for example, if your clan is Yenyeti, that means your mother is Yenyeti. That means her mother is Yenyeti. Maybe your father is Qanachtiti, so then that makes you Qanachtiti Yeti. And then you can have other things that are your grandparent clan, but specifically your mother's father's clan. So let's say that clan was Shukachati, then that would be your Dakanu. And you bring that up when you're in a situation where you can address that clan specifically, or if you're talking about that clan, and you're just really saying that this is, I have a special relationship with this clan. It's not a term that's used a whole lot anymore. Panate Kanai is another term that's not used a whole lot anymore. We can look at that one later. And it just means my other group of people. People are something other than me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, pretty.
Okay. So if we go over to the right-hand side, there's a term you can use for anybody of the opposite clan. And it's good as far as when we start really speaking Tlingit to know what each other's clan is and use the appropriate term. So these ones that are on the far left and far right on the top is how you could refer to someone who you just know somewhat casually, but maybe the relationship is maybe not close enough for a specific kinship term. But both of these could default to like friend, right? If you want to know how to say friend in Tlingit, it's more like, well, it depends what clan they are, because that's what you should be using. Not everybody is your humi. It doesn't work like that in Tlingit. Tlingit is a clan-based way of looking at things. I was sitting down in Minnesota. It was really funny because they had a word, I can't remember what it was. It's exchanging some language knowledge. In Lakota, they have a word for friend, and I don't remember what it is. And I was like, oh, what do you call someone, And then I was just having a conversation, like, well, what do you call someone who's not Lakota? They told me the word for it, and I said, what's it mean? They said, enemy, right? So it's like, that's anybody who's not Lakota, or specifically enemy. Okay, so anybody who's an in-law, K, high tone A, A-N-I. And it's Connie. 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 And you'll see Raven in some of the stories. This is what he'll call people. Connie. So he's using this, but he's using this kinship term to usually con him into something. He's like, come here, I want to chat with you. But he's usually up to no good as soon as he starts using these kinship terms. That's usually the case. It's not the case with people. That's the case with Raven and the Ravens. There's also a term Nakani, the clan opposite of the clan, right? So it's like you're an opposite person of this entire group of people. But that's the term for somebody who's hosting a potluck. So let's say if we're Shukachadi and we're having pu'ik for somebody, and then you're Kaplantan and you're our clan opposite, and you are really close to this person, and you also know an awful lot about Tlingit culture, we might ask you to come and run the party for us. And that's what the Nakami does. So the last one we'll do for today is on the top left, clan relative. This is underline X, O-O-N, high-toned I. So what we'll see about these these kinship terms is a lot of them are based in other types of terms as well. So this one is Khuni, 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 Khuni. And what that means, if you say Khuni, what you're saying is, you're my likeness. You're like me. Right? So in some instances that might mean like, because we're the same clan, but in other instances it might mean like we're similar types of people. That's why we sort of get along and hang out. And so we'll see how these terms continue to work. We'll go down towards kids and marriage and other stuff like that. And then when we go into some stories and stuff, you'll see these things surface. All right. Any questions? Are we okay? All right.
This has been an awesome class. I really like it.
All right. Good cheese. See you guys tomorrow with phrases. I'm sending the email as soon as I hang up. And tomorrow we'll start with just your guys' little mock conversations. No pressure. Just have fun with it. It's a chance to just exercising the language a little bit. Cheesh.
Let me see.
Ganesh Cheesh.